Hey guys, Goose here, and in this video we're going to be talking about David Crosby, who unfortunately has passed away today at the age of 81. David was born on August 14th, 1941 in Los Angeles. Crosby was the younger brother of musician Ethan Crosby, briefly studied drama at the Santa Barbara City College before dropping out to pursue a career in music. Crosby was about 14 when his brother Ethan gave him his first guitar, a Silvertone acoustic. He got a new one, so he gave me his old one, Crosby remembers. I learned 2 chords and I played them endlessly. He and Ethan, who also played stand-up bass in jazz and Latin combos, began performing together as a folk duo. As soon as I started playing live, that was it, I was done, says Crosby. By the time Crosby hit his 20s, he wanted a great guitar. He also had a Vega 12-string guitar, but now Martins were calling his name. Crosby says, "I was in Chicago working the folk clubs, Mother Blues and Old Town North, and I took the money I made and I found a D18 in a shop way out in the suburbs. I rode out there on the bus, bought it, brought it back. It was really good, 50s lightweight D18. So the conversion of his D18 into a 12-string happened when Crosby got back to California and had visited Lumber's Fretted Instruments, a shop in Berkeley that sold and repaired vintage acoustics. Crosby remembers, "I went to John Lundberg and I said, listen, I want this to be a 12-string. Can you make this into a 12-string? They made it into a 12-fret 12-string, which turns out to be part of its success story." Crosby says a repairman had to push the bridge to the center of the top to make it 12 frets. So the bridge is in a different place than it is on a 14 fret. That's one of the reasons this thing sounds as good as it does. The other reason is that it has a spectacular top on it. When Crosby talked to Guitar Player, he says of his 12-string guitar, "It's an interesting story. The first guitar I bought was made by a banjo company that produced a 12-string guitar. Bob Gibson, an American folk singer and a key figure in the 1950s-60s folk revival, played one, and he was one of the folk guys I liked, so I got one too. But the first good one was a Martin D18 that I bought at a music store in Chicago when I was living there. When I moved to California, I took it to John Lundberg in Berkeley and asked him to convert it to a 12-string because I was entranced with 12 strings. He did it, and to this day it's the best. It's even better than my D45 12-string from the Martin Custom Shop, which is killer effing good, or my Roy Smeck Gibson that the folks at Alembic converted into a 12-string, and that looks exactly if there had been a Roy Smeck Gibson 12-string, or the copy Martin made of my D18 for the prototype of my signature 12-string. That has an ebony neck and is still hanging on my wall. I truly love 12 strings, and the best one I've ever had is still that first one." When Crosby was asked, "Why were you so enthralled with the 12-string?" he replied, "Bob Gibson and Pete Seeger are the 2 that jumped to mind. I just like 12 strings right away and still do. I was playing that D18 conversion last night." Crosby's 12-string modified guitar was the only guitar he owned in 1964 when he played around the Los Angeles scene. This included the famous Troubadour Club on Santa Monica Boulevard. With the help of producer Jim Dixon, Crosby recorded his first solo session in 1963. Crosby arrived back in Chicago from New York City to hang out with Terry Callier. Crosby joined Roger McGuinn and Gene Clark in an outfit called the Jet Set. McGuinn was an accomplished guitarist, having played not only with the Limelighters, but also the Chad Mitchell Trio, Judy Collins, and even Bobby Darin. So he and Gene are sitting there playing, and I just sit down with them and start singing harmony, and they both go, "Wow." Crosby remembers, "The only reason I got through high school was the choir. Every once in a while we'd get all in tune, and the whole rest of the room would lift up and get magical for a minute. I love that shit. It feels real good." The band obtained a demo acetate disc of Dylan's Mr. Tambourine Man and recorded a version of the song featuring McGuinn's 12-string guitar, as well as McGuinn, Crosby and Clark's vocal harmonizing. The song turned into a massive hit, reaching number 1 in the charts in the US and the United Kingdom during 1965. And while McGuinn originated the Byrds' trademark 12-string guitar sound, it was Crosby who was responsible for the harmonies and the unusual phrasing of the songs. Of course, McGuinn was using his signature Rickenbacker 12-string, and that gave the Byrds a real good jangle. They also recorded Pete Seeger's Turn, Turn, Turn. "I started out in the Byrds with my 12-string because it was the only guitar I had at the time," Crosby says. "But that didn't really cut it for me being in the Byrds. I thought what George Harrison was playing and Gretsch So I got a Tennessean, and pretty soon after, a Country Gentleman. That was my main electric guitar for a long time. It was a good electric guitar. I had a lot of fun with it, and I put an STP sticker on it. Around the time of Crosby's departure from the Byrds, he met a recently unemployed Stephen Stills at a party at the home of Cass Elliot of the Mamas and Papas in California in March 1968, and the two started jamming together. They were soon joined by Graham Nash, who had just left the band The Hollies to play with Crosby and Stills. Their second live appearance was at the Woodstock Music and Art Fair in August 1969. The first album, Crosby, Stills and Nash, was an immediate hit. It spawned 2 top 40 hit singles. Within the group Crosby, Stills and Nash, all 3 members were initially playing only acoustic guitars, and Crosby wanted them all to be the same. Crosby says, "Martin's all of us. I had a couple of D28s that I don't think I have anymore, but then in 1969 Martin started making D45s again. They hadn't done that since before the war, and soon as I saw one I wanted it. So I went again to Lundberg's, and they got a number of them. I picked the 3 best and bought them. Right then, still got them." When asked in 2021 if he still takes his vintage Martins on the road, Crosby replies, "I've been taking 2 or 3 1969 Martins, even though it's a crazy thing to do because they're worth like $100,000 each. I've been taking them on the road anyway because they're that good. I also have a Gibson J200 made out of Brazilian rosewood from their custom shop that I have taken on the road. And I have some guitars made by Roy McAllister up near Seattle. He showed up at my door one day saying he'd made me a guitar. It was a 000 style body, and I prefer dreadnoughts, but he mentioned that he was the guy at Santa Cruz Guitars who made the copy of my 12 string, which is another one I have, so I invited him in. And it was one of the best guitars I'd ever touched. It's still the one closest to the bed. I've given 5 of his guitars away to other players, and I have 5 others that he made, including a mind-boggling 12 string. I take 4 of his guitars on the road. And when I play 12 string in the live show, it's an electric made by Alembic." Hope you've enjoyed this video, guys. This is Goose signing out. Until the next one, take care.